Today we're going to spend some time talking about different types of scholarly articles, how to find scholarly articles, how to then organize your scholarly articles in an annotated bibliography, and then key features of a literature review. This is all to help you prepare for your term paper, which is a major assignment due towards the end of the semester. Let's first differentiate between primary and review articles. And in this diagram, review articles are sometimes also referred to as secondary articles. So you'll notice that there are some key differences between a primary article, which I like to think of as an article that describes empirical research, versus a secondary or a review article, which I like to think of as an article that summarizes multiple empirical research studies on a topic into one document. So some key ways to differentiate a primary versus a secondary or a review article is that primary articles are going to have key aspects of what we would think of in an empirical study. This includes a method section where details of the experimental approaches are explained, and results where you have figures and tables and graphs and pictures, etc., that show evidence of the results from the empirical studies. This is different from a secondary or a review article where you may or may not have a method section, and you typically don't have a results section because it's oftentimes going to be summarizing the results from multiple different studies. You may see some figures, but they're going to be more cartoon in nature to, again, summarize our understanding of a particular topic. So how do we find these articles? And the answer is that there's a variety of different online databases that can be used. And we're going to talk about two of them here. The first is PubMed, and this is a free online database of articles relevant to the life sciences, biomedical, and behavioral research fields. The PubMed posts scholarly articles that are both primary, meaning empirical research articles, or review articles that summarize multiple empirical research articles on a particular topic. PubMed is curated by the U.S. National Library of Medicine at the NIH, literally just up the road in Bethesda. And what's nice about PubMed is that when you search PubMed, it provides the citation of the manuscript, so the authors, the journal that it was published in, the title of the manuscript, the year it was published, so on and so forth. But it also gives you the abstract of the article so that you can quickly read that abstract and determine if that paper is of interest of you and if you want to actually secure the complete paper to then read further. So what's also nice about PubMed is that many searches provide links to journal websites to download a PDF copy of the article. So let's just differentiate a couple different options here. The first are open access journals. A great example of that are the PLOS One PLOS journals. These are journal articles that you do not need to have a subscription to read, and that they're freely available online for you to download. The other options are journals where you have to have a subscription in order to access the information. Now, this can be kind of done in a couple different ways. Some people, especially if there's a journal that you publish in frequently, may have a personal subscription. However, most individuals have a subscription through the institution that they are employed at, such as UMBC. And so, as a student at UMBC, you have access to a variety of journals through your affiliation here. Just keep in mind that UMBC doesn't have subscriptions to every journal. And so if you ever run into a situation where you can't find the journal that you want or you can't access a PDF, there are other options such as an interlibrary loan, and I'm happy to help you set that up. Regardless, if you go through the institutional subscription, this is going to be through the UMBC library website where you can find those journals. And again, if you have troubles with this, come see me. One final thing to note is that any work that was funded by the NIH or the Health and Human Services is actually deposited on what we call PubMed, which essentially makes it open access. And so you will see PubMed Central, and these will be in journals, sometimes that are subscription-based, but because of NIH regulations, they must be open access. And so this has actually dramatically increased the accessibility of essentially NIH-funded research. So here's what the PubMed site looks like. You literally just put your search terms into the top there, and then you will receive a variety of results based off of those search terms. The other scholarly database is Google Scholar. This is also a free online database of scholarly literature, but the nice thing about Google Scholar is that all disciplines are represented, not just the life sciences. So if you're wanting to do something that maybe has a sociology or physical science aspect of it that may not be on PubMed, there's a good chance that you would be able to find that article on Google Scholar. There are a variety of literature types on Google Scholar as well. So these include not only peer-reviewed journal articles, but you can find books, conference papers and proceedings, theses and dissertations, as well as technical reports. And here's the interface for Google Scholar. Again, you just enter in your search terms, and like with PubMed, you get typically the citation and some type of brief description, if not the full abstract for that particular paper. So when you search these databases, it's important to use Boolean operators, which help you limit or narrow the scope of your search. So for example, on the left, if you wanted to understand papers where both peanut butter and jelly were discussed, then you would use capital "and" between peanut butter and jelly. If you wanted to find any papers that had peanut butter and or jelly discussed, then you would use "or." Finally, if you wanted to look at papers where only peanut butter was discussed but not jelly, you would use "not." And so definitely familiarize yourself with these Boolean operators because they can be very helpful, especially if you're really trying to narrow down a particular topic. One other thing to note about scholarly articles is an impact factor. So impact factors is a measure of the yearly average number of citations that an article published in a specific journal received. What this essentially is a measure of the importance or the prestige of a journal, meaning that the higher the impact factor, the more esteemed that journal is, and it means that it's likely going to get more coverage or be seen more readily. Now, an impact factor varies year to year because an impact factor is calculated based off of a ratio between the previous 2 years' citations. Personally, I pay attention to impact factor, but I don't necessarily make it the end-all be-all for establishing as to whether an article is the right fit or not. Because I've seen really great quality work published in journals that have a lower impact factor. That being said, it is nice to at least have an understanding of the impact factor, especially if you are reading an article from a journal that you are not familiar with. That gives you an idea of the quality of the journal and how trustworthy perhaps the manuscripts that are published in that journal may be. Now you found your citations and now you want to organize them so that you understand really the relevance of that citation to your overall scholarly work. Well, a great way to do this is an annotated bibliography. And this is a list of citations related to a topic that includes a summary or evaluation of the source And what's key is that summary or evaluation is in your own words. So here's how a typical annotated bibliography is structured. You'll notice that the complete citation for this paper is provided, and then underneath there are a few sentences that discusses what are the main points of this paper, why is this particular paper relevant to what you are focusing on, and you may even have some limitations of the paper or some things that are not addressed in the paper. This is nice because it concisely helps you to organize your thoughts. And when you go to then write your literature review and you put in your citations, it clearly helps you to structure what citations go where. And you even have already written some of this in your own words that you can then use or modify as you start to write your literature review. I strongly encourage that whenever you write any sort of scholarly work, start off with an annotated bibliography. I actually have multiple annotated bibliographies for my own work. Whenever I start a new project, I always start a new annotated bibliography. And as I read papers, I always add some additional content or some additional annotations to help me kind of organize my thoughts. One other thing that's really important is how you actually format your citations. So when you cite a source in a scholarly work, there should be essentially two types of citations. First, you should have your complete citation, which has the complete reference at the end of the document in your bibliography works cited references section. However, you should also have an in-text citation, such that when in the body of the work, you denote which source at the end of the document is relevant to that particular thought or idea. Now, what's tricky is that depending on the journal or even the discipline in which you are writing a paper for, the citation styles may vary. You can find what these citations are by going to the journal website and actually looking at their author guidelines. That being said, some great resources for kind of a standard scholarly format is the American Psychological Association. And you can find resources for this using the Purdue Online Writing Lab, which is a wonderful resource for writing and structuring papers, as well as the APA Style Guide. And I've provided the sites here. Finally, another nice thing to organize your citations is to use an online reference manager, such as Zotero, which is free and you have access to through UMBC. It's a free open source manager, and what's nice is that you can actually have some browser plugins that say you're at the journal site or even the PubMed page for that entry, and you want to make sure that it gets deposited into your online reference manager. You can just click a button in your browser and it automatically inputs the relevant information into your system. So notice that I actually have my Zotero here, and you can see on the left-hand side, I have folders related to all of the different projects that I work on. And then I have my various citations that are listed there. One other nice thing you can do is it has a keyword function where you can either enter in your own keywords or, quick phrases as to why that particular paper is relevant to you, or you can use the keywords of the paper. And that's really nice because it's a great way to search your reference list as you're working on a paper. What's also great about Zotero is it can actually insert your references into your document for you in the proper citation style based off of the particular venue in which you're publishing that paper. So you can actually, as shown here on the left, choose the style or the citation style that you want. You'll notice that the Nature citation style is highlighted. Then as you're writing your paper, you can have a plug-in in Word where you literally just say, okay, this exact spot is where I want to insert a citation, and you can actually pull up your citations through Zotero, and it automatically deposits them, as shown on the bottom right here, in the proper format for that particular journal. This is super easy. I strongly encourage you to go ahead and familiarize yourself with Zotero or some other structure if you are able. I like Zotero because it's free and it's pretty user-friendly. Finally, let's just chat real quick about some details of literature reviews. So literature reviews summarize current knowledge of a topic in a single document. It oftentimes is going to then cite or reference previous research in the field and how that has contributed to our overall knowledge of that topic. Literature reviews also sets up a foundation for research on a particular topic, and it can actually be helpful to determine future directions. So whenever I've started on a new project, one of the things I first will sit down with are literature reviews related to that topic to try to understand the current kind of state of research and where are there gaps in the research to kind of help further delineate my project and my objectives and my research questions. Literature reviews, like I said, can be really helpful for identifying gaps, but it can also be helpful for identifying contradictions in the field, especially if in a particular topic there are controversial takes on that topic based off of different experimental approaches. Literature reviews will highlight important findings, and it can also be used to summarize methods to help you understand what experimental approaches are typically used within a particular field. So here are the main aspects of a literature review. First, you'll have an introduction. Why is the topic important? This is going to outline the context or the spin of the literature review, basically identifying the key points that you'll be discussing. Analogous to your thesis statement that you may have in, say, an essay or some sort of argumentative piece. You will then have a body, which is going to summarize current knowledge of a subject. Good literature reviews are going to be then broken up and organized by a variety of subheadings to help you organize your thoughts. You're going to summarize the major findings in your own words. And we're going to talk about this in the next slide, but at least in the STEM or the natural sciences discipline, you're always summarizing or paraphrasing the work of others. You're not using direct quotes. Direct quotes are rarely, if at all, used in science writing. And so I really encourage you to get used to paraphrasing the work of others when you are writing and summarizing their work. Finally, the body helps connect primary literature sources to a larger topic and can really help understand our current understanding of a topic. Finally, in the conclusion, you are going to summarize what is discussed and then identify where the gaps are in the literature, i.e., what are future directions that need to be evaluated in a field. Again, a couple words of caution when it comes to literature reviews. As we just talked about, in scientific writing, direct quotes are not used. Therefore, you should paraphrase the work of others. And this requires that you include an in-text citation. So if you are taking the ideas of others, you should cite it. If you are taking the words of others and putting it into your own words, again, you should cite it. It is technically plagiarism or violation of academic integrity if you paraphrase the work of others and do not include appropriate in-text and end-of-document citations. Keep in mind that in a literature review, you want to have this very delicate balance of providing sufficient information to understand the topic, but not overwhelm with details. A lot of the very nitty-gritty details are going to be found in those primary literature pieces. Whereas in a literature review or a review document, you're trying to essentially take those primary literature pieces and make them accessible to a broader audience. So I encourage you to practice summarizing main points of a primary article in just one or two sentences and really get at what are the main points of this primary literature piece and why is it relevant to this larger topic. The other word of caution for literature reviews is try to avoid one paragraph, one primary article structures. So typically, you are going to have a paragraph that focuses on a particular topic. I encourage you to be citing multiple sources, and it's totally normal for you to cite the same source at multiple times within your document because you may be pulling multiple different aspects of a single primary source into different pieces of your document. So try to avoid this one paragraph, one primary article structure. Finally, read review articles examples. Sometimes the best way to understand how to structure a literature review or a review article is to read literature reviews and review articles to help familiarize yourself with that type of writing. So again, if you have questions or want to be referred to some example review articles, just come see me and I'll be glad to help you with that.